Hello YouTube, Dave here again. Welcome to a bonus video for day number 2 of our Goblin test week. So I actually recorded the first 2 videos making the first edition and the second edition AD&D characters all on the same day. So this is actually the next day after I recorded the second edition AD&D character, which I have right here. Now, in the video, I ended up getting a really bad set of stats, and I decided that I wasn't going to use that character just because of how suboptimal everything really was. However, I gotta be honest, I really feel like doing that kind of broke the spirit of the Advanced Dungeons & Dragons, model of trying to make the best of, the worst situation. So what I decided to do is I actually went back and looked at the footage from the first take, and I got the stats back. So let's just give me a second here. I'm just going to label these, because I just wrote down the numbers in the order that I rolled them. So I went back, and this is what I ended up getting. There, see if I can get it. So strength of 9, which is the minimum for a fighter, dexterity of 12, constitution of 6, intelligence 7, wisdom of 8, and a charisma of 5. So what I'm going to do is, I think I'm actually going to make that character and put it through the Goblin test right away. Now I'm not going to count this towards the actual test when I do it, but I thought this would just be kind of fun, and it'd be interesting to see just how far this character can go. So, without further ado, let's just jump right into it. So, just kind of scroll down, or not scroll down, but aim the camera down. Zoom in a little bit. Alright, so the first thing I'm going to do, where this character has some pretty hopeless stats, is I'm going to name my character. Now, this is going to be sort of a reference to something else, and hopefully a lot of you will get this reference. But I'm going to name him... Tar Markvar. And like I said, hopefully some of you will get that reference, but it's a character with what I would consider to be hopeless stats. Now, the reason that I ended up re-rolling the character the previous day was, I'm going to make him awful good, was that if I was DMing a game and one of my players rolled these stats, I would get them to re-roll everything, so I wouldn't force anyone, even if I was using the 3d6 down the line method, I wouldn't force anyone to use these stats because they are pretty bad. So sex is going to be male. Age, let's make him 22. Height, let's make him 5'8". Weight, not that much, so let's make him 120 pounds. Alright, I think that's all that we really need. So let's go right into the stats here. So just write the numbers in. So we've got 9, 12, which is his best dexterity. He'd be better suited to be a rogue than a fighter. The constitution of 6 is what scares me. 7 intelligence, 8 wisdom, and 5 charisma. Alright, actually I also just noticed that on this sheet, normally I'm used to seeing charisma represented as CHA, and here they have it as CHR, just kind of interesting, but alright. So let's go into, now I'm pretty sure for everything other than Constitution and Charisma, I think everything's just basically gonna end up being zeros, but let's just zoom back out a little bit here. Open up our player's handbook. This is my original 1999 purchased player's handbook. Alright, so 9 strength. Normal, none. 35 pounds, which I'll have to keep into consideration. And 90 pounds maximum press. Open doors, on a 5, that's not too bad. And 1% chance to open or to bend bars and lift gates. So hit probability is 0, damage adjustment is 0. Weight allowance is 35 pounds, maximum press is 90. Open doors on a 5, which is actually kind of average, it's not bad. Maybe it's not average. I think it goes up to a d20 roll, so never mind. Still pretty bad. And 1% chance to lift, or to bend bars and lift gates. Now, the one thing I want to take a look at is the weight allowance. So weight allowance is the weight in pounds a character can carry without being encumbered. So I got to be careful with how much equipment I actually give this guy, and what armor and what weapons and stuff that he uses, just because I don't want to encumber him and weigh him down. Now the 12 dexterity, which is our best score, is, if you look across the chart, it's all zeros. So one thing about the AD&D games is that, and it's something that I was kind of thinking about, and one of the reasons that I wanted to make this video is that the low stats don't necessarily mean that your character is going to suck, because a lot of them really don't make much of a difference until you get to like the 16, 17, 18 range. I'm actually going to skip over con because I want to do that last, because I'm assuming there's going to be a penalty there. So let's just go right to intelligence, which is 7. So I get 1 language and nothing else. 8 wisdom. 8 wisdom is zeros across the board. I don't have to worry about spell failure. And let's look at that 5 charisma. Because that, excuse me, because that is rough. So 5 charisma. So I can have 2 henchmen, which isn't bad, but their loyalty base is at -4 and their reaction is at -3. -3, -4, and 2. So the last thing I wanted to save is Constitution, because this could be the killer right here. So 6 Constitution, I get -1 hit point. System shock for 6, so 50, 55, and nothing else. So 50% system shock, 55% chance resurrection survival. So if this guy was brought back, was resurrected and brought back, then there's a almost 50% chance that he would die just from being resurrected. So that is, like I said, really, really, really rough. Now the one thing I want to just have a quick look at while I'm here would be encumbrance. And I'm not quite sure where that would be. I think it's under, nope, way too far. So yeah, I'll have a quick look at the encumbrance rules before I get into the actual combats. Like I said, I actually want to do both in this video, just see how many goblins he can actually take down on his own. Oh, okay, we got character encumbrance here. So, okay. So modified movement rates. Because I think that's what I have to look at here, because I can wear up to 35 pounds before I'm considered to be encumbered in the least. So so that is an optional rule. I'm not going to worry about that too much right now. I mean, I'm only going to be having this character standing in place anyway, but I will keep in consideration how much weight he can actually carry when I get into the equipment, which I may as well do right now. I know one thing for sure. My weapon thaco is going to be 20, because it's not going to be modified one way or the other. Luckily, to be a fighter, I can't have a strength so low that it gives me a penalty. Sorry, just got my coffee with me here. Alright, so let's start with the starting equipment here. So I get to roll 5d4 and multiply that by 10. So 2, 5, 8, oh, not too bad, 12. So I get 140 gold for this character. but I kind of want to stay low on the weight. So let's go right to our equipment, because it may be a bit difficult to have something as heavy as chainmail. So let's see what we got here. Money and equipment. So chainmail, looking on the armor charts, chainmail is 40 pounds on its own. So chainmail, 40 pounds. So I kind of want to keep this, like I said, I want to keep him as low as possible, considering that he will be really easily encumbered because he's not that strong. Now I'm going to go probably a little bit beyond just the normal encumbrance, but I don't want to come anywhere near the maximum press. So what I think I might do is look at, first of all, I think I'll go with just a medium shield. I can actually go with a small shield, because the reason is that he's only going to be fighting one thing at a time. So let's just go with a small shield, which weighs 5 pounds. What I'd like to do is keep him under 50 pounds, if possible. So I'm going to look at his weapon next. So the long sword. Why don't we just zoom back out again here? Whoops. Alright, so the long sword has a weight of only 4 pounds. That's not so bad. But let's see if we can find something that might be just a little bit lighter. So let's just look over on this section here. It's been a while since I've actually looked through a lot of this. So the maces are actually pretty heavy. Okay, I just wanted to give him like a light mace, but just looking at the weights here, the footman's mace is 10 pounds, and the horseman's mace is 6 pounds, so both of those are heavier than the longsword. I'm kind of used to some of the more recent editions where they just have like the light mace and the heavy mace, and the light mace is something that you could use very easily. So I think that's probably the lightest decent weapon I'm going to get. So we'll go with the longsword. And that is 4 pounds, so we're at 9 pounds total here. So let's try to get, like I said, just maybe a lighter suit of armor. Something that's not going to completely, whoops, don't want the camera to fall. Something that's not going to completely weigh us down. So I'll zoom back in a bit here. Alright. So we've got, I said I want to keep him under 50 pounds, so I could get the chainmail, and that would put him at 49 pounds, assuming he doesn't carry any other gear or equipment. I could also go with banded mail or brigadine. Oh, actually, that's kind of expensive for how much it weighs. But can I do that? Because the small shield was only 3, and the long sword was 15, so that is 18. And I got 140, so yeah, I could do that and have 2 gold left over. What does Brigadine give me for an armor class? I want to give this guy the best possible chance of survival. So armor class ratings. Okay, so Brigadine is armor class 6. And it's interesting they don't have Brigadine and shield. Just scale mail or hide and shield, chain mail. Huh. Alright, yeah, let's actually just stick with the chainmail then, because that will still put me at 49 pounds, so that's still not too bad. So I already know that that would be an 8 armor class of 4. Armor types, so chainmail. And shield. Next I'll fill out my longsword. Alright, so longsword. Number of attacks. Let's make this guy... I don't think there's any stat requirements in order to specialize in a weapon. Weapon specialization enables a fighter. Yeah, so no, I just spend an extra proficiency slot, so I don't have to have a certain stat or anything. So, we're going to... Tar Markvar is going to get 3 attacks every 2 rounds. No bonuses to attacks or damage. So 1d8, 1d12. Range is going to put melee. Weight is 4 pounds. Medium size. Slashing weapon. And speed factor of 5. Alright, so our movement. I'm not going to worry too much about that because I'm not actually going to move, so I'm just going to give him the base movement of 12. Again, I'm not worried about him actually going anywhere. The last thing I want to do is his hit points. Now, this is going to be interesting because he gets -1 and you roll hit points in Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. So, technically speaking, if I roll a 1, then he's just kind of dead before he even gets a chance to do anything. Which would be kind of funny. So, let's see what happens here. I think you would, honestly, I think you would treat give him a minimum of 1 hit point, but we'll see what we get. Oh, that's actually not bad. So I rolled an 8, so he's going to have 7 hit points and an armor class of 4, which isn't terrible. So he may actually end up surviving here. The next thing I want to do is just look at the goblin stats, because like I said, I'm going to actually run the test combat, and I really don't want to do much in the way of editing, because it's just sort of a bonus thing, and I kind of want to move on to the 3rd edition character creation. So let's just see if we can find our goblins. And I just gotta love some of this AD&D artwork here. Those are some gnomes. I like the hat with the candles all sticking out. And then we got our goblin. Very simplistic looking goblin. So I'm just going to write down sort of the base stats that I need for them. So we'll kind of zoom back in here. So what they get is, let's see here. So the goblin is AC of 6. So I need to roll a 14 or better to hit the goblins. And the goblin, so I'm just going to put to hit Tar. So they've got a THAC0 of 20, and Tar Markvar has an armor class of 4. So to determine how you're going to be able to hit him, essentially what you do is you subtract the opponent's armor class from your THAC0, and that gives you the number. So, for example, if Tar had an armor class of 0, then the goblin would need to roll a natural 20 on the dice in order to actually hit him. Now, that's not going to be happening here, because Tar has an armor class of 4. So, in order to hit armor class 4, the goblin needs to roll a 16 plus on the d20. They attack with a short sword, which has, I know it has a speed factor of 3. I'll look that up again just to make absolutely sure, but I'm pretty sure that's what it is, and it does 1d6 damage. And their hit points are 1d8 minus 1 with a minimum of 1. So 1d8 minus 1, minimum of 1. So you'd actually roll the enemy's hit points. Now, if I was doing like a battle with a large number of goblins, what I would do is just roll one set of hit points and they'd all share it. But I'm actually going to roll the hit points each time a new goblin enters the combat. So the last thing I just want to check out, once again, is, I'm just going to zoom out here. is I want to make sure that the speed factor is in fact 3 for the short sword. So the good news is that Tar can't be killed in a single hit, which is good. So where he's got 7 hit points, he would have to be hit by at least 2 attacks in order to actually be put down. So short sword. Yep, speed factor, oops. Yeah, speed factor of 3. Alright, so we're going to go right into it here. So I've got my map here, combat map. I placed a number of goblins on it already. So what I just kind of want to do is see just how far we can get. Now normally for some of the fighters you would use like miniatures like this guy, or, you know, or this guy, and, you know, look really kind of like impressive and, you know, intimidating, and, you know, there's like the dwarf guy here. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use this guy, this little fella. This is one of the reasons I was looking at possibly getting a mace, was just to have this poor little guy. I mean, when you compare him to that, you know, much less imposing, and I think that's going to be perfect for Tar. So we're starting them off in melee, melee battle range already. So there's not going to be any movement or anything like that. Now I do have to do initiatives, and initiative happens every round in this version of the game. Now for anyone who is new to Dungeons and Dragons, and they're starting with 5th edition, if you've been following the Unearthed Arcana articles, you may have noticed that there was a thing not too long ago for the what's called the Greyhawk Initiative. And what the Greyhawk Initiative is it's basically this. It is a turn, like rolling initiative every single round, and having things like your weapons or your spells or whatever you're going to do modify how your combat turn goes. So, for example, what we're going to do is roll a d10 for each creature, so for Tar and for the goblin. I'm just going to do the one, it's every round, right? So it doesn't matter if the goblin dies or not. I have to re-roll every single time. You add the speed factor for the weapon, or if you were casting a spell, if you're playing spellcaster, each spell has a casting time, which is usually equal to the spell level, but sometimes can be more or less. So you would add that to your d10 roll as well, and whoever gets the lowest number goes first, and it goes from lowest to highest. That's why things like the short sword is a smaller thrusting weapon, has a speed factor of 3, and the longsword, for example, which is more of a slashing weapon, has a speed factor of 5, and the great sword, which is the two-handed sword, has a speed factor of 10. So we're going to get right to it here. We're going to start the combat, and we'll see how that goes. Alright, so let's begin round 1, initiative. It's going to start with Tar Markvar, and oh boy, he rolled a 9, so he goes on initiative count of 14. The goblin goes on 8. And we're just going to have our goblins down here. So our first goblin is going to have 5 hit points. And our first goblin gets to go first. So we're going to roll our d20. Now the way that combat works in 2nd edition Advanced Dungeons & Dragons is each round is equal to a minute. And I know that the idea of having only one attack in a 60-second span versus getting multiple attacks in 6 seconds, which you do in later editions, may seem kind of weird or not so powerful or kind of disappointing. What it's actually meant to represent is that throughout that whole minute, there's going to be several attempts to attack, like several thrusts and parries and deflections, and there's all kinds of attacks that are just going to get foiled. And the one that you get to roll is one that actually has legitimate shot of breaking through the defenses. So right now we've got like the goblin just kind of stabbing wildly at Tar, and Tar is trying to get his shield up or hoping that the armor's going to stop the blows, or just try to dodge it with his impressive mediocre dexterity. So let's go right to the goblin's first attack here. Just going to aim this down just a little bit further. And our goblin, so we need to roll a 16 or higher to hit Tar on this d20. Oh. And I rolled an 8, so he missed. Now this may end up going on for a while just because of that. And why don't I actually get a second set of dice for Mr. Markvar. Actually, why don't I... Okay. So these will be the Goblins' dice. And their initiative. And we got Tar's here. So initiative and D8 for longsword. All right. So Tar with his he also has a THAC0 of 20, but the Goblin has an armor class of 6. So Tar only needs to roll 14 or higher in order to hit. And he rolled a 15. So Tar, just kind of swings wildly at the Goblin and just kind of flails his longsword, eyes closed, just trying to connect with anything that he can because, let's face it, with those stats, he's not really a warrior. And, the Goblin just tries to duck and dive and get out of the way, but Tar is flailing so sporadically and so wildly that one of his thrusts with the longsword, or slash with the longsword, ends up clipping the Goblin for 3 points of damage. So the Goblin's still alive, but it took a pretty nasty hit with that. So now we move on to our next round. Alright, oops, that was a 10. So the Goblin is going to go on 13, and Tar is going to go on 14 again. So unfortunately the Goblin still gets to go first. So the Goblin, now terrified that he may get killed by this kind of weakling character, starts, striking with thrusting with his short sword, and rolls a natural 1. So he fumbles pretty badly. Tar manages to dodge out of the way, looking almost like, an experienced warrior from Bard's Tales, and he comes back with a blow of his own, but because the Goblin just tripped and kind of fell, Tar's slash with the longsword went way overhead. And let's just keep going. Alright. So the Goblin goes on 13 again, and Tar is only going to go on 6. So Tar Markvar, readjusts after the Goblin kind of staggered below his last swing and attacks again. And we got a 19 on the dice. So Tar hits him, slashes him, and deals enough to down the Goblin. So he basically hits the Goblin, goes from like shoulder down to hip, and just cleaves the thing, dealing enough damage to have killed it, even if it was only the first time he hit. Next Goblin moves up in line. And if I can get through all these Goblins, I'm going to be super impressed. Now this Goblin is going to have 1 hit point. So this is a pretty weak Goblin. He looks very emaciated, obviously this is kind of almost the bottom of the barrel, and he's going to try to avenge his friend. And we got an 8 for the Goblin. Tar goes on 11. So our Goblin friend is going to make a swing, and Tar just kind of, dodges out of the way. Tar's going to retaliate, and I rolled a 16 on the dice. I do a minimum of 1 point of damage, so guess what? That Goblin is also down. So up next, are they going to start taking this seriously? We have another Goblin with 5 hit points. I may actually get through these. I'm kind of impressed by this. So, going to combat, or initiative, I should say. So, this may not be good for them. So, the Goblin goes on 12, Tar goes on an 8. So, Tar, feeling super confident now, having taken single-handedly 2 Goblins on his own, just bolstered by this unbelievable success, takes a swing, gets a 16, hits the 3rd Goblin for 5 points of damage. The Goblin is down. So Tar Markvar is now becoming a legend. Alright, another Goblin steps up. This Goblin's going to have 5 hit points as well. They're going to go to initiative. This Goblin is not going to screw around as much. He goes on a 4. Tar Markvar goes on a 10. Alright, so this Goblin, upset over the loss of all of his friends, empowered by the spirit of revenge, gets a 17, so Tar gets hit. So the short sword starts sinking into the armor, it breaks a few links of the chainmail, and deals 2 points to Tar. So Tar has 5 hit points remaining. Tar, undeterred, will swing back. 16 on the dice. 7 hit points, 7 damage, so 4th goblin down. I'm gonna have to get more goblins out. Second here, let me just get some more goblins. I mean, I may be getting ahead of myself, but I do have some goblins here. Alright. Alright, so the last goblin. Oh, I think I scratched out his hit points here. Oh no, 1 took damage, that's why. Okay. So our next goblin only has 4 hit points. Markvar will not be deterred. He goes on an initiative count of 10. Goblin goes on 7. So this goblin, hoping not to join his brethren in death, takes a mighty swing, misses, so Tar again deflects it with his buckler, just kind of smashes the short sword out of the way and fires back at the attack of his own, which the goblin is able to dodge out of the way of. Go to our next round of combat. Goblin goes on 6, Tar goes on 12. Alright, so our goblin friend, once again, hoping to stick Tar right in the damaged armor, right where he took the last attack. Takes a swing, hits him, so he starts to sink his short sword into the same wound and deals 4. So Tar is at death's door. He's near mortally wounded, but he's still able to continue on. He's going to make his return attack. Natural 1. So the wounds are really starting to get to him as Tar can barely get his longsword to slash. The goblin easily gets out of the way as we go to the next round of combat. Oops, got to roll a d10. Alright, so Tar will go on 8 and 13 for the goblin. So Tar, desperate to defeat this last goblin, or what he thinks will be the last goblin, takes a swing and misses. The goblin, seizing the opportunity, just misses, so he's going for that same hole once again. This time the buckler comes down and stops it. Next round, so Tar Markvar starting to get tired, starting to get winded, and he's moving a lot slower than he was before. The goblin swinging again will miss, and Tar in response also misses. So these two are going at it heavily, trying to do everything that they can to down the other. Tar will swing again. I've been forgetting his attacks his 3 attacks every 2 rounds. I've only been doing 1. So, last surge of energy. Hits the goblin. Kills this last goblin, or so he thinks. So as he's panting and trying to catch his breath, and as he's bleeding out, another goblin runs up. Alright, and initiative. That's one thing I'm going to have to keep in mind when I do the actual test, is to not forget the 3 attacks every 2 rounds. It's been a while since I've had to use that mechanic. Alright, so Tar will go on a 13 and the goblin will go on 10. So this goblin is hoping to finish the job. Misses. Tar. Oops, how many hit points does this thing have? 6. So this one means business. This is one of the tough goblins. But Tar, whoops, undeterred, rolls a 4 as he's barely able to get his sword arm up. Going to the next round of combat. 14, 6. So the goblin will thrust again and miss. Tar Markvar, retaliation. Hits the goblin, so smashes him. Does 8 points, kills another goblin. Tar is doing incredibly well. So here's the thing, I'm going to give him 2 more goblins to fight. And if he defeats these guys, then I'm just going to consider him to have survived and will live to fight another day. So, another goblin comes in. This one looking a little bit more frail and weak than the others, but he's there hoping to take down this juggernaut that is Tar Markvar. Tar goes on 14, goblin goes on 11. So the goblin sticks Tar with his short sword, and that's it. That's enough to take him down. He only had 1 hit point left. So the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So the seventh goblin that Tar has faced today was the one that finally managed to put down this legendary hero. So there you go. That was a combat situation, sort of the goblin test, with what is one of what could be considered to be a weak or almost hopeless character. And I'm really surprised that he did as well as he did. And honestly, probably could have made it through a few more had I remembered about the 3 attacks every 2 rounds. So that is something, like I said, I'll have to make sure that I do remember, because this is the only version of the D&D game where they're going to get that option. So first edition AD&D, it's 1 attack per round. Third edition is going to be 1 attack per round. Fourth edition is going to be 1 attack per round. And fifth edition is going to be 1 attack per round. So I'm going to have to do something, and I don't quite know what it is yet when it comes time to do the actual tests, to remember that every second round my fighter is going to get a second attack. So if you guys have any suggestions, let me know in the comments below. What I was thinking that I could do is have an actual initiative chart set up with every second round marked, and that way I know which round he's going to get the 2 attacks in. So anyway, there you go. So even our hopeless character, our suboptimal character, managed to take down 6 goblins single-handedly. So that actually kind of surprised me. I honestly thought that I would only get, maybe 2 or 3. Like, I really thought that first setup that I had, that first line of goblins, was going to be more than enough to put him down, but that didn't happen. So Tar Markvar is resilient. Tar Markvar deserves his place alongside, the heroes of his people as he departs into the afterlife. Anyway, thank you guys very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. And again, I had a lot of fun actually doing this. It's been so long since I've run 2nd edition combat. It's actually been, wow, back in 2000. Was the last time I ran 2nd edition, so it's been 17 years since the last time I actually ran combat using this system. So anyway, I had a blast doing this. I hope you guys enjoyed, and thank you very much for watching, and be sure to come back tomorrow when we build our 3rd edition, or 3.5 first level fighter. So thank you guys very much again. Hope you enjoyed. See you next time.